Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to the session. I hope I'm audible and visible. Can you guys see me? Can you guys hear me? So, another important session on humanities, reading comprehension for MAH CET. If you guys are preparing for MAH CET, we do not have much time left, right? So, soon we're going to also start with MAH CET RC revision. But today, just to help you out with the different categories of passages you expect in your exam. Today we'll be going ahead with humanities passage. Okay, so let me just pull in my screen. I hope you can see my screen. And also we have talked about reading comprehension, what it is, how to read with the passages, what question types do we have in the previous sessions we connected on, right? So here too, I'll be explaining to you what all RCE types are there. And today, majorly touching upon humanities passages, what we are gonna go ahead with. Okay, so let me just pull in the first passage. This is the first passage paragraph 1. Quickly go through the slides. I mean the first paragraph, and then we discuss the passage, guys. Quickly giving you 1 minute, and then we discuss it over. I hope we're done with this, guys. I'm going to take you to the next slide now. So very important to understand where the author refers what. Okay, what is the role of each paragraph we are learning here? Why is a certain paragraph mentioned? That is extremely, extremely important, guys. Like, any reading comprehension, it has 3 sections to it. It has an introduction. There is a body of the passage. And we also have conclusion. What we are supposed to reflect on is, why is the introduction being stated? What is the claim of the author? If this is well understood, we go for the body of the passage. What all is there? What are the examples being used to quote? Is the tone rhetoric? If yes, why is it rhetoric? The analogies the author uses, and eventually, what is the opinion of the author? Okay, these are the basic things we're going to look for when we talk about any passage. Introduction, body, and the conclusion. Very, very important to understand these three parameters if we are looking to understand the entire passage. All right, next part. The last part of it, and then we have some questions. Okay, so let's go through the passage together, and then we'll also be discussing what is a general idea, what is the structure, and what is the tone of the author. Guys, I have always been telling you to figure out the tone and title. Just when you're done reading the passage, we make sure that we are done with the tone and title as well. We do not wait for another 30 seconds. So, are you guys done with the tone and title of the passage? Are you done with the crux of the passage? If not, I'd give you 30 seconds. Quickly type it down here. If not, maybe we'll do it together when we read the passage. Okay, so let's start the passage. It says, "We know very little about the first true men. We have never seen their pictures. In the deepest layer of clay of an ancient soil, we've sometimes found pieces of their bones. These lay buried amidst the broken skeletons of other animals that have long since disappeared from the face of the earth. Anthropologists have taken these bones and they have been able to reconstruct our earliest ancestors with a fair degree of accuracy. Okay, so what does this passage talk about? It says that the first true man, the first man we saw on the earth, we've never seen the pictures in the deepest layer of the clay on the ancient soil. We don't know if they even existed. We've sometimes found pieces of their bones, and these pieces of the bones lay buried amidst the broken skeletons of other animals that have long since disappeared from the face of the earth. So these animals, which might not even be found on the earth, we've seen their bones lying. Like there was something that existed before anything, but we don't know if the traces exist. But then it does talk about the broken skeletons which have been found. So the tone of the author itself is a little we do not know what exactly is he referring to. He does say that there were some broken skeletons, but what? And then it says anthropologists have taken these bones and they have been able to reconstruct our ancient ancestors with a fair degree of accuracy. Right? Anthropologists have taken these bones as in the people who've been studying humans. They have collected these bones and they have been able to reconstruct our earliest ancestors with a fair degree of accuracy. So on the basis of the skeletons, they've collected the bone particles or the parts they've collected. They've tried to create the entire human and anticipate what kind of a body structure these guys might be having. Okay, then it says the great grandfather of human race was a very ugly and unattractive mammal. He was quite small, much smaller than the people of today. The heat of the sun and the biting wind of the cold winter had colored his skin a dark brown. His head and most of his body, his arms and legs too, covered with a long coarse hair. He had very thin but strong fingers, which made his hands look like that of a monkey. His forehead was low, and his jaw was like the jaw of a wild animal, which uses its teeth both as fork and knife. He wore no clothes. He had seen no fire except the flames of the rumbling volcanoes, which filled the earth with the smoke and their lava. So, great grandfather of the human race was a very ugly and unattractive mammal, right? So then it starts talking about the great grandfather as in like the ancient of the ancient human race. If we look at, so that person used to be a very ugly and unattractive mammal. He was quite small, much smaller than the people of today. So if we go by evolution theory, we'll see that earlier people used to be very large, but otherwise it says that they were very small, very ugly as compared to people of today. Heat of the sun and biting wind of the cold winter had colored his skin a dark brown. His head and most of his body, his arms and legs too, were covered with long coarse hair. He had very thin but strong fingers, which made his hands look like those of a monkey. His forehead was low, and his jaw was like the jaw of a wild animal, which uses teeth both as fork and knife. He wore no clothes. He had seen no fire except the flames of his rumbling volcanoes, which filled the earth with the smoke and lava. Right, so then he talks about he wore no clothes, he had seen no fire except the flames of the rumbling volcanoes. All he could see was the rumbling volcanoes, which filled the earth with the smoke and the lava. He lived in the damp blackness of vast forest as the pygmies of Africa do to this day. Where he felt the pangs of hunger, he ate raw leaves and the roots of plants, or he took eggs away from an angry bird and fed them into his own young, right? So what it's talking about is how the pygmies in Africa looked similar to what we have humans today. Like not humans today, but humans at that time survived. He lived in damp blackness of vast forest. It's like surviving somehow in the dense forest, like this black, that vast big forest, as the pygmies of Africa to do to this every very day. When he felt the pangs of hunger, he ate raw leaves and the roots of plants, or he took the eggs away from an angry bird. He would just steal the angry bird's eggs and feed them to his own young ones. Once in a while, after a long and patient chase, he would catch a sparrow or a small wild dog or perhaps a rabbit. These he would eat raw, for he had never discovered that food tasted better when it was cooked. So whatever he would get, he would start just chewing it, just to feed his hunger, without even realizing whether the taste could have been better had it been cooked. Like many of the animals who fill the zoo with their strange noises, early man liked to jabber. So you also look to you also like to jabber and eat and make all those gobbling sounds. That is to say, he endlessly repeated the same unintelligible gibberish because it pleased him to hear the sound of his voice. In due time, he learned that he could use this guttural noise to warn his fellow beings whenever danger threatened, and he gave certain little shrieks which came to mean there is a tiger, or here comes 5 elephants. Then the others grunted something back at him, and the growl meant, I see them, or let us run away and hide. And this was probably the origin of all language. So basically, what are we talking about? Like many of the animals who fill the zoo with these strange noises, early man also had some noise, right? He didn't know what to speak, how to speak, but they would jabber. He endlessly repeated the same unintelligible gibberish because it pleased him to hear the sound of his voice. In due time, he learned that he could use this gruttal noise to warn his fellow beings whenever danger threatened. So it was like this way the language was born, and whenever he had to instruct his fellow beings about any sort of danger, he would use that language he was using, just the gibberish, gluttural noise. It was all gibberish. Gibberish is like waste. Okay, so gluttural noise to warn his fellow beings whenever danger threatened, and he gave certain shrieks which came to mean there's a tiger, or here comes 5 elephants. So that sound was an indication of some kind of warning. Then it says that the others grunted something back at him, and their growl meant, I see them, or let us run away and hide. And this was probably the origin of all language. This led to a language altogether. So before we move ahead, guys, I want you guys to please help me out with the general idea, the structure, and tone. Gonna give you 2 minutes for this. Quickly type down the general idea. That is the crux of the passage. That is a summary. Okay. S means the structure, which is basically the function of each paragraph. And T means the tone and title. Okay. Help me out with this, and then we move to the questions. Quick, 1 to 2 minutes, guys. Guys, if you're done with that, if you're done calculating the general idea, the structure and tone, basically the passage talks about what is the general idea? It's about the organic, lifestyle of a man, how he was before the entire evolution, the first man, how his lifestyle was, what we get to know, and how the language was originated. Okay. Tone is pretty much descriptive, that you must have seen. That in the entire passage, we get to see that the author is just trying to describe on, how a person used to live, how he used to communicate with each other, what kind of food he used to have. So everywhere the tone is descriptive. Okay, then let's move to the questions. The very first question is about primary purpose of the passage. Okay, now very tough to understand, I think. I'll give you 1 minute, quickly go through it and tell me what is the probable answer as per you, and then we discuss it out. Okay, let's have a look at the question. It says, what is the primary purpose of the author in the passage, right? Why is the passage been written? So I told you there are two types of questions, guys. One is the reason behind why the passage has been written, and the second one is what is there in the passage. So when it's a primary purpose of the passage, it's about why the passage has been written. It says to provide one possible theory for the origin of language, why the language might have originated. Second says to describe the general appearance and some of the behavioral traits of early man, what he used to look like and how he used to behave. To compare early man with the modern day pagans, are we anywhere comparing? Discuss the views of some anthropologists with regards to the origin of early man, or discuss the food habits. Food habits is also one thing. So you can always and always try to eliminate and get the answer, guys. What do you think is the probable option? Let's try to eliminate and get the answer. So you must have seen one possible theory for origin of language is just one part, right? A cannot be the answer. Describe the general appearance and some of the behavioral traits of early man. Can it be B? We can hold on to this option. Compare early man with modern day pagans. To discuss the views of some anthropologists with regards to the origin of early man, no. And discuss food habits is also one section. So answer to this question has to be B, Bombay. Okay, let's move to the next question now. Let's have a look at this one. Best supported from the information of the passage. It's a CR question, critical reasoning question. Have a look at it, then we discuss it. Guys, so let's have a look at the question. It says, which of the following assertions is best supported from the information in the passage? Okay, so again, assertion is best supported from the information in the passage. What does the information talk about? It talks about the human, the first experience of a human, how he or she was living, what he was eating. Forget about clothes or the language they could speak, but it was more about very raw form of a human, right? And which of the following assertion is best supported from the information in the passage? It says some races of early man had fair complexion and blonde hair. Early man had a lot of similarities with apes. Early man made use of fire to cook food, though he ate most of his food raw. Early man is not the only species from his time that has disappeared completely from Earth. Pieces of the bones of early man have been found in the molten Earth's crust. So, whatever it is, we are looking for something that frames a concrete answer, concrete supportive answer, right? So, if I look at D, which says early man is not the only species from his time that has disappeared completely from the earth, because we are also referring to some animals, right? Anthropologists have taken those bones and they've been able to reconstruct ancestors. That's for the humans, right? But apart from humans, there were some animals as well. The wild animals, the jaw of a wild animal has also been seen. Forehead was low and his jaw was like the jaw of a wild animal, which uses its teeth both at as fork and knife, right? We wore no clothes. So that is similar to it. So answer to this question has to be D, Delhi. I hope you'll be able to eliminate the options like why not E, why not C, or the other options? Why are we eliminating these options? Right? D, Delhi is the right answer because we need a supportive answer. Right? And the passage says that there were animals who were using their jaws as both fork and knife. Right? Okay, so I'll give you another question before we move ahead. Let me get one more question for you. Let's have a look at this question, guys. I think it's good time to start discussing this question. Not a very tough question, guys. According to the information, the passage of the following could be the most possible reason for the origin of language. So basically, the human of the ancient time, of course, he could have used another way, but he used, language in a certain manner only. So why was he using language in a certain manner? That is what the question is about. And I'm sure since you have revised all the, concepts twice with me while you figure out the general idea, the structure, and tone. This must not have been very tough for you. So, desire to understand one's surroundings better, desire to collaborate in order to hunt animals much more efficiently, no, have better camaraderie with other members of the species, desire to share one's joys and sorrow, or desire to warn others of impending danger. Right? It's primarily an easy question, comparatively an easy question as compared to what we had. Right? So, A, desire to warn others of impending danger, because the last paragraph it talks about that how they used to make that guttural noise, that gibberish sound they would create just to warn, whatever it is, whether it's the five elephants coming together or a lion or a tiger coming in, they would just warn each other, right? So guttural noise is the correct answer. So desire to warn others of the impending and obstructing danger coming their way, right? So it should be A alpha. That is the correct answer. Okay. So I hope this passage was well understood. I hope we had very refined understanding of the passage. Now let's move to another passage, guys. Very interesting one. Let me just pull another humanities passage itself. So this is a longer one, and I would want you guys to please focus on each paragraph very carefully. Try to summarize each paragraph, and then we move ahead. So please have a look at the passage, and then we discuss it. All right, guys, let's move ahead to the next slide. Okay, please let me know if you want to move to the next slide. Check this out. All right, next slide. Let me know once you're done with this. Okay, last part of it, and then we have a few questions. This is the last paragraph, guys. Quickly have a look at it and also figure out the general idea, the structure and tone before we discuss the passage. All right, then we have questions. So before we move to the questions, let's have a look at the passage together. So what does the passage talk about? I'm sure you must have found it interesting. If not, at least I'll explain it to you and then you will. The career of trumpeter Miles Davis was one of the most astonishingly productive that jazz music has ever seen. So we're talking about a music composer here. That trumpet, he blows trumpet, Miles Davis, right? He was one of the most astonishingly productive that jazz music has ever seen, yet his genius has never received its due. The impatience and artistic restlessness that characterized his work spawned one stylistic turn after another and made Davis anathema to many critics who deplored his abandonment first of bebop and then of cool acoustic jazz forever more innovative sounds. Having begun his career studying bebop, Davis pulled the first of many stylistic surprises when, in 1948, he became a member of his impromptu musical think tank that gathered in a New York City apartment. The work of this group not only showed slowed down tempos and featured ensemble playing as much as or ever more than solos in direct reaction to bebop, it also became the seedbed for the West Coast cool jazz style. Right, so we're talking about how that jazz style was evolving at that time and what his work, impacted it. How did his work impacted it? In 1948, he became a member of impromptu musical think tank that gathered in a New York City apartment. Work of this group not only slowed down tempos and featured ensemble playing as much as ever more than solos in direct reaction to bebop, it also became the seedbed for the West Coast cool jazz style. That is, it became the main originating factor. In what would become a characteristic zigzag, Davis didn't follow up on these innovations himself. Instead, in the late 1950s, he formed a new band that broke free from jazz restrictive patterns of chord changes. Soloists could determine the shapes of their modules without referring back to the same unwavering repetition of chords. In this period, Davis attempted to join jazz phasings, harmonies, and tonal qualities with a unified and integrated sound similar to that of a classical orchestral piece. In his recordings, the rhythms, no matter how jazz like, are always understated and instrumental voicing seem muted. Davis' recordings from the late 1960s signal that once again his direction was changing. On Files de Kilimanjaro, Davis requests that keyboardist Herbie Hancock play electric rather than acoustic piano caused consternation among jazz purists of the time. Other albums featured rock style beats, heavily electronic instrumentation, a loose improvisation attack, and growing use of solo studio editing to create jazzed soundscapes. Right. So, what he was doing, how his recordings were impacting, how his direction was changing. So, what this paragraph talks about. And then we have by 1969, Davis' typical studio procedure was to have musicians improvise from a base script of material and then to build finished pieces of out of tape like a movie director. Rock groups had pioneered the process to jazz lovers, raised on the ideal of live improvisation. That approach was a violation of the premise that recordings should simply document the musician's thought processes in real time. Davis again became the target of these polemics by purist jazz critics who have continued to belittle his contribution to jazz. Right? Belittle his contribution to jazz means there will be people, there will be critics who will be always criticizing you of your work, of your task, what you were doing. And this is what happened even in case of Davis as well. There were people, there were critics who were always criticizing his work. Right? So it says that Davis again became the target of fierce polemics by jurist jazz critics. So the purist jazz critics, they started criticizing his work and they were always belittling him. They were always condescending his work, his piece of work which he had, contributed to developed earlier. And rock groups had pioneered the process. Like there were many rock groups that had already gone out of the process. To jazz lovers raised on the ideal of live improvisation, that approach was a violation of the premise, and that recording should simply document the musician's thought process in real time. So that was what David became the target of the fierce polemics by purist jazz critics. What probably underlines the intensity of the reactions against Davis is fear of the broadening of possibilities that he exemplified. So, what was the intensity of the reactions happened again against Davis's fear of the broadening of possibilities? Like, what could have happened? That was being exemplified. Ironically, he was simply doing what jazz explorers have always done, reaching for something new that was his own. But because his career endured, he was so much, being forced every time, and he was just enduring it. He had a lot of patience and he was just enduring all of it because he didn't die young or record only sporadically. And because he refused to dwell in whatever niche he had previously carved out, critics find it difficult to definitively rank Davis in the aesthetic hierarchy to which they cling. So they always criticized his work. They always criticized him for not being able to meet their expectations. So that way, somewhere, he was always and always criticized, for his work which he couldn't show properly. Okay. And now we have some questions. So please have a look at this question, guys. I'm giving you 2 minutes and then we discuss it out. Okay, so let's discuss this question very quickly, guys. Which of the following best states the main point the passage states, right? Because the career of Miles Davis was characterized by frequent shifts in styles, he never fulfilled his musical potential. Because the career of Miles Davis does not fit neatly into the preconceptions about the life and music of jazz musicians, jazz critics have not accorded him the appreciation he deserves. Because the careers of Miles Davis was usually long and productive, he never received the popular acclaim generally reserved for artists, or the long and productive career for Miles Davis spawned most of the major stylistic changes affecting 20th century jazz, or versatility and openness have inspired the admiration of most jazz critics. Right. So you must have seen that the passage pretty much touches upon the primary purpose. Like the primary purpose is about Miles and what, the career took a shift altogether. So here, because it's a primary purpose question, again, we'll be picking up an option which gives us the reason why this passage has been written rather than what is there in the passage. Because the central idea question is about the summary of the passage. And this is about the main point of the passage, right? So, the first option talks about because the career of Miles Davis was characterized by frequent shifts in styles, he never fulfilled his musical potential. Second says because the career of Miles Davis does not fit neatly into the preconceptions about the life and music of jazz musicians, jazz critics have not accorded him the appreciation he deserves. Because the career of Miles Davis was unusually long and productive, he never received the popular acclaim generally received for artists with more tragic life histories. And the long and productive career of Miles Davis spawned most of the major stylistic changes affecting 20th century jazz. Versatility and openness have inspired the admiration of most jazz critics. So, if it is the main point of the passage, it has to cover something which the passage has been written for. So, where it talks about the career of Miles Davis does not fit neatly to the preconceptions about the life and music of jazz musicians. So, B. Bombay is the correct answer choice for this particular question. So, we should be able to figure out the reason why the passage has been written, what are the main elements of the passage, what is the general idea, what is the structure, and what is the tone and title of the passage, at least once we're done with the passage. So for this particular question, the answer has to be B. Bombay. I hope this is clear, guys. Right here, the answer is B. Bombay. Okay, so let's keep it till here. Let's connect again on Sunday. And thank you so very much for joining in. We'll keep revising all the concepts of RCs and also make sure that we're practicing reading comprehensions from different types of passages. Okay. See you guys. Thank you so very much and have a great day.